The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NBA.
I don't think the Thunder starting lineup is set, but I do think they have a target on their back.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
One of the most interesting mailbag questions was about the Thunder starting lineup. Now, this is an interesting topic because you have Mark, who throughout his career has seen different variations of starting five, but also different philosophies with the starting five. Like during the Josh Giddey year with Chet Holmgren healthy, like the starting five was the starting five for the whole season. Whenever you move into this year, you dealt with a lot of injuries, so you rotated through. You had Isaiah Joe, you had Cason Wallace starting, you had Aaron Wiggins starting. You had a different kind of formula, even in the playoffs. Whenever you saw Chet Holmgren return on February 7th, that became your starting five from February 7th till the end of the run for the most part. But in the finals, they go away from the Shea, Dort, J-Dub, Chet, Hartenstein starting five. Even in the Western Conference Finals, that was the starting five that was announced, not necessarily the lineup that played starting level minutes. So it's interesting to think about where this starting five could go. And then you kind of default to it being Shea, Lou, J-Dub, Chet, Hartenstein. I don't think that default is necessarily set in stone. I don't think it's cemented yet. Me personally, I still think that their best lineup, if you won't say what the matchup is, right, and you're just going into a game blind and saying, how can you maximize the talent level on this team? I think that lineup is Shea, Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, J-Dub, Chet. That's where I would go if I was Mark. And then when you play Denver, when you play Houston, when you play bigger teams, probably even Dallas, right? Then you can go back to the Shea, Lou, Dub, Chet, Hartenstein starting five. And I think that that's what Mark's going to do. I don't think that he's going to be rigid with that double big starting lineup. I think that there was a couple different factors for why they were so rigid with that lineup down the stretch of the season. You were just racing against time and you didn't have any time. So in order to get any lineup data, they just had to start and play a lot together. And we know how important that Mark views lineup data and trying to see what you have and trying to explore the roster leading into the playoffs. And because of the nature of Chet's injury and because they were like two ships, crossing in the night or whatever the saying is, Chet plays the first 9 games while Hartenstein's on the shelf. Hartenstein returns around Thanksgiving. Chet's out with a broken hip. They just had to go full force into that double big lineup. And because it was so, kind of clunky at the start, you really had to lean into it and get the reps to eventually make it to where it became not only a serviceable lineup, but a good lineup for them. And I do think that the double big lineup is a good lineup, but I wouldn't be, shell-shocked to see that in certain games you want to start Cason Wallace and you want more of that point of attack, perimeter defense on the court versus a couple big men on the court. I still believe that the natural instinct for Chet and the natural ways to maximize his offense will be with him at the starting five position. But this is another case study of you don't want to abandon either option. You don't want to abandon the double big lineup. You don't want to abandon the Chet at the five lineup because I'm curious how Hartenstein and Chet's offense looks now, a year removed from Chet's hip injury. And when you imagine he'll get back to what he's been his whole career as a three-point shooter, and career in this case being high school, college, rookie season, where he's around a 40% three-point shooter. If he gets back to that level and that level consistently, it does once again provide a new wrinkle into what that double big lineup can be. So I do think that everything's on the table. And I wouldn't just say that, hey, for 82 games, they're going to start Shea, Dort, Dub, Chet, Ihart. I don't think that they'll be lined up for 82 games. I don't think that'll be lined up for all the games that those 5 guys are healthy. I still think that Mark will mix and match how he does it. And I think that the best lineup will be the Shea, Kaysen, Dort, Dub, Chet lineup. First question from Steve McGehee of News 9. My guy. I love Steve. Steve is incredible, and you should be watching the Blitz. You should be watching News 9. Is Denver the biggest threat to OKC in the West? Absolutely. I know a lot of people want to clump in Houston, and they're just eager to throw Houston into that tier 2. I think you can have them at tier 2, but I don't think you can have them tethered with Denver. I don't think it's a 1A and 1B situation. I think it's a clear 2 and a clear 3. It's OKC, it's Denver, it's Houston. There's a steep drop off after Houston, so you can clump them all in a tier if you want to, but you do have a definitive list to me of OKC, Denver, Houston. And with Denver, they have a matchup nightmare in Nikola Jokic, who can single-handedly turn lineups, turn games, turn series. He's flanked by one of the best starting lineups in the NBA. They would be in the A tier or S tier, the highest tier of starting fives in the league. This is where if you are someone who does lump in Houston with Denver, this is where we're going to differ, because you probably are also someone who thinks that the Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson swap is at best a wash. I think it's at worst a wash. I think that Cam Johnson can elevate what Denver is doing. I love the additions to their depth. I think that when you look at Jonas Valanciunas, I believe he's a very flawed player. I believe that if you were centering a front court rotation around him in the playoffs, you'd be sunk. But the thing is, Denver is utilizing Valanciunas in the way that he's never been utilized before, and in a way that Jokic has never had the benefit of before, where come playoff time, you've got to survive with Valanciunas on the court 3 minutes a night, 4 minutes a night. And that's about the expiration date on Valanciunas in the playoffs, is 3 to 5 minutes. And so it fits his window. It fits Jokic's window. So it adds in depth for the regular season and helps you get to your end goal, helps you have a higher seed that sets yourself up better come playoff time. The Tim Hardaway Jr. edition, that is one where it's going to be boom or bust to me. And that's the case with every shooter. I mean, like if he's nailing his threes, if he's on that series, he's going to be a pain in the butt for anyone to deal with. But I still like the shot at him. I think that Denver's done the most, that they've maximized their credit score. They've maximized their credit card. The allotment that they had this offseason, they've maximized it in upgrades. And they took the Thunder to 7 last year and dealt with a plethora of injuries. I mean, you think about it, and we tried to do this song and dance of like, well, Aaron Gordon only missed one game. I mean, he missed the most important game. He played in Game 7 in name only. He was not who he was that whole series. Well, Jamal Murray was only sick for 2 games. Okay, sure. But Michael Porter Jr. for 7 games couldn't lift his arm. I mean, for 7 games, he couldn't get on the floor effectively. So, I mean, like, they were really banged up on top of already being the most shallow roster in the league, on top of having to play guys like DeAndre Jordan, guys like Russell Westbrook in the year of our Lord 2025 in the postseason. Like that was just not a recipe for success, and yet they were the toughest foe to Oklahoma City a year ago. So I think that they for sure got better, and for sure have proven it, that they have a team that can challenge OKC. And so they have to be, to me, the clear-cut number 2. Would I still pick Oklahoma City? Do I still favor Oklahoma City? Absolutely. I still favor them. I would still pick them, just like I picked them this postseason. But they check all the boxes for the number 2 spot. A proven threat to OKC, a proven threat to OKC who's gotten better. And whenever you're looking at just starting fives, just short-handed playoff rotations, they have one of the best rotations in basketball of the shrunken playoff rotation. So Denver, I'm all in on Denver. I think that Denver's going to be really good and be the biggest challenger to OKC. But the Thunder are still set up in a way that they should and are able to repeat as champions of this season. So we'll see how they handle that Denver bout.
August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Perhaps you believe the Green Bay Packers are going to win the Super Bowl this year, or maybe you have a division winner, dark horse, you'd like to parlay. Maybe the Broncos and the Seahawks you'd get some juicy odds on that if you wanted to do it. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bet now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game.
Trey Murphy III trade rumors? Please. The Pelicans would be insane to move him.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast.
Let's get into the latest rumors, and that is around Trey Murphy III. And this has to do with the Golden State Warriors and their restricted free agency situation with their own wing, Jonathan Kuminga. You know, a name that we had heard kind of linked to the Pelicans at the beginning of the offseason, but truthfully, there was not a whole lot there when it came down to it in the Pelicans' interest in going and getting Jonathan Kuminga, at least not for what the Golden State Warriors have wanted. And there's a reason why that situation is still unsettled. But recently now comes from Jake Fisher, someone whose opinion and like thoughts and is a good insider. I value the intel information he gets. I find it credible. Said the Warriors would have a ton of interest in Trey Murphy. And to that I say, duh. Like, no, I'm not going to swear on here, but all of that, right? Like, of course they're interested in Trey Murphy. You're going to tell me, like, breaking news, right? They're interested in a 6'9" wing that shoots nearly 40% from three on insane volume, has defensive upside to be able to defend multiple positions, and is still scratching the surface of his potential. They want that guy? Of course. Guess what? The Golden State Warriors also probably want LeBron James, Luka Doncic. Guess what? The Pelicans want Steph Curry. They might want Chris Paul, for all I know, too, right? They would like LeBron James. They'd like a Luka Doncic. They'd even like Anthony Davis back, right? Everyone wants all the good players. Of course, the Golden State Warriors are interested in Trey Murphy. But you want to know what's not going to happen? The Pelicans are not going to trade Trey Murphy for Jonathan Kuminga, even if it included 3 or 4 first-round picks from the Golden State Warriors. Because here's the thing. I don't think those picks are going to be that valuable at all. So beyond trade, in my opinion, is untouchable. I think that those picks aren't good. Oh, they're going to be bad when Steph Curry retires. They're the Golden State Warriors that are willing to spend and have a strong ownership group, a strong head coach. Players have shown they want to go there. Kevin Durant wanted to go there. Jimmy Butler wanted to go there. You've seen a number of other players be willing and wanting to go to the Golden State Warriors. They could retool pretty quickly. This is not like a small market team, a Washington Wizards or something else, right? That team can reload immediately, thus rendering those picks not all that valuable. So even if it's Jonathan Kuminga and 4 first-round picks, I don't think the Pelicans have an interest in trading Trey Murphy. Murphy is the best floor spacer this team has. He's the perfect complement to Zion Williamson, and this team needs more shooting. Trey is the most reliable option for that on this roster. And with the extension that he signed, just $25 million this year, it's insane value, right? Trey is not just a good player. He is a core piece of this team that the franchise is building around. He's the type of guy you build around, not trade away. And the fact that the Warriors want him, along with every other team in the league, just reinforces how valuable he is. So when you hear these rumors, don't buy into anything with it. I don't see Trey Murphy III going anywhere, let alone for Jonathan Kuminga. I'm not the biggest Jonathan Kuminga guy. Last year, 15.3 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 2.2 assists. For his career, he shoots 33.2% from three. He shot 30.5% last year, 32% the year before that. Trey Murphy, by contrast, last year averaged 21.2 points per game. More rebounds, more assists, while shooting 36%, which was the lowest he shot from three, but he did it in large volume of 8.3 attempts per game. Kuminga, by contrast, 3.2 attempts per game. This is not what they're doing here. Kuminga's a little bit younger, but he's about 2 years younger. It's not that much of a difference here. And look, if the Pelicans wanted to go with a full-on rebuild, maybe I could see this. Maybe I could see a trade of Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, and you just dismantle the roster for picks and all of that. You know, build around Jeremiah Fears, Derek Queen, and just try and make that work going forward in the future, or then look for, another guy here. But here's the thing, right? I talk about this a lot on the show. We're not talking about what they should do sometimes. It's here's the situation and here's how the Pelicans are going to operate. So we're going to look at it through that lens. We all know they're not rebuilding this year. Maybe it changes at the trade deadline, but you're not going to just move Trey Murphy for picks and be like, whatever, we got picks. They could be valuable in the future when you're committed to Zion Williamson, when you're building around Zion Williamson. And there is a ridiculous Zion Williamson rumor that I read today that I'm going to address in tomorrow's show. There's just nothing to this, let alone for Jonathan Kuminga, who wants more money than Trey Murphy is going to get paid in theory and isn't as good as Trey Murphy is. Look, Kuminga does some things better, but he's not better than Trey Murphy, in my opinion. So to me, this is just not much of anything. This is the Golden State Warriors trying to will this into existence, just like they tried to will it into existence for Herb Jones earlier in the summer. And then the Pelicans signed Herb Jones to an extension. Worth noting as well, nothing about what the Pelicans done outside of maybe Derek Queen and some of the Troy Weaver looking moves have really leaked. The Jordan Poole trade for CJ McCollum, that didn't leak at all. That kind of came out of nowhere and not blindsided, but kind of caught everyone by surprise. If they wanted Kuminga, this would have been done by now. A deal would have been done by now, but the Golden State Warriors, frankly, are asking for far too much for Kuminga, who's just going to take the qualifying offer potentially and just leave in a year because he doesn't need to play ball with the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors gave him DNPs in the playoffs. If you're going to trade Trey Murphy for a guy that was getting DNPs in the playoffs or a Warriors team that was not particularly good, look, you can hate some of the moves that Joe Dumars has made. You cannot trust Troy Weaver and Joe Dumars at all. They're not doing that. No one is going to do that kind of trade, and I'd like to say no one would be that dumb for it. So I just don't see this happening. Look, that ends up happening. We're going to have the angry cast of all angry casts here on Locked On Pelicans. I don't see it happening in any sort of capacity. Trey Murphy is beloved not only by the fans, but by this organization as well. He does all the right things. He puts in the work in the offseason. He's just a fun dude, super engaging. You would easily make him the centerpiece of a team and fans would eat it up here. And I think when you have someone like that, this would feel like a betrayal of the fan base. Maybe not on the level of the Luka Doncic from the Mavs to the Lakers trade, but it would feel like an absolute betrayal of the fan base at a time where you probably can't do that. And that alone is going to keep Trey Murphy III here. He's in store for a big season. He's going to have a more outsized role than he's ever had, at least at the beginning of the year. He's shown a lot of improvement in his game. Now he needs to create a little bit more for himself and for others, but if he can do that, and he's shown flashes of it, 3.5 assists per game last year is not nothing. He can do a little bit more of that. This is a very special player that can, he's not a good defender just yet, but he has shown the ability and has the tools to reach a good, be a plus defender level. If he does that, this is a very incredible player, let alone he and Herb Jones are so close and friends that you can't break that up. I would hate it. I know you would hate it too. So sorry, Warriors fans, this is not a thing that's going to be happening here, and I wouldn't read too much into this or believe it in any sort of capacity whatsoever. So, sorry, they're not trading Trey, not for 3 first-round picks or anything like that. Rebuilding would be different, but they're not doing that.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
What is James Wiseman's role going to look like for the Pacers this year, and why is it going to be a little different?
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast.
Yeah, I was kind of just thinking about the Pacers roster and who I'd covered correctly, who needed more talk this offseason. I was like, man, I haven't barely talked about James Wiseman at all. Right? Basically, everybody else on the team for some on-court reason or role or rotational reason or contract reason, has been getting some buzz or some discussion off season. And with Wiseman, it's been almost nothing. Like the timing he got signed was the day that Kevin Pritchard spoke to all of us. And that's what he told us. They were signing Wiseman, and the Hove trade was right before that. And then Miles stuff was right after that. And Isaiah Jackson was right after that. And just stuff has kept happening and happening and happening in a way that it kind of fell to the wayside. It was a shorter discussion about him. And the problem is for him, last year there was a lot more deeper, nuanced discussion because there's at least some low level creeping in. Like could he be behind Miles Turner in the rotation? And he was new last year, so there's a lot of like intrigue and interesting discussions about what he could be, his role, things like that. And this time, a lot of that's not the case, right? The money situation, they signed Jackson for 3 years, $21 million, Wiseman for 2 years at the minimum, very low guarantees. They're both coming off an Achilles injury. It's very clear which one of them is higher. In the pecking order, they traded away real stuff for Jay Huff. Just follow the trades and the money. Clearly, he's under Ajax and Huff in the rotation, right? That's not even like, that's just obvious, right? It's just how it is. He was already under Jackson last year. I thought, although we'll never truly know because of the way injuries shook out, and they traded for Huff for a reason. So he's clearly the third stringer. Fans know it, and he's coming off of the second major injury of his career, the meniscus, of course, with Golden State, this Achilles with the Pacers. So what's this going to be, right? The other things that popped up about James Wiseman, and then you wonder, what's he going to be and what I should really approach talking about this is, one, I realize I need to talk about him just in general, and also let me know if you feel like I haven't covered anyone enough this offseason. Like I think we talked about everybody a good amount, or at least the required amount for their current situation, but off the top of my head, like not a ton of Obi Toppin Rare and Neesmith talk, for example. We can get to them if there's interesting stuff. But two, Carlisle got extended, and I talked about at that time how good Carlisle has been at development, why that made it even better for the timing for this to happen before a gap year. Well, guess what? James Wiseman's a development project, right? That's the perfect guy for a development team. That's the whole point of this kind of season, is taking a stab at a player and making them better. And if Wiseman can be that, then that's great. That's a good idea for the Pacers. And three, the reason it popped up in my feed today to really dive into him is he's changing his number. He's going to be numbering 11 next year. He was 13 last year. Tony Bradley has 13. Shout out to Tony Bradley for the number thievery. So let's start this discussion of James Wiseman and this season being different by actually talking about a bunch of other different players. And you'll very quickly understand the pattern of what's going on here. Part of where Jackson and Wiseman are going to be playing and have sort of non-overlapping roles is because they're both coming off Achilles tears. I bet back-to-backs are, especially early in the season, but if Jay Huff is healthy, maybe the full season, I bet they're off the table. Go back to Kevin Durant in 2020-21, was not playing back-to-backs. When he was healthy, wasn't happening. DeMarcus Cousins in 2018-19, guess what? He was not playing in back-to-backs. Rudy Gay played in some, but not all back-to-backs after his Achilles tear, and he actually had some games, and this is similar to Wes Matthews, where they were both playing some back-to-backs, but sometimes when they would, the first game they'd play like 15 minutes, and the second one they would play normal minutes. Klay Thompson didn't play back-to-backs after his Achilles injury. Obviously, a lot going on there with him. He missed 2 full seasons with other injuries as well. But that's like most of the important Achilles tears since Kobe's, obviously. And even he came back the next season and played and then got hurt again. And it was different, obviously. I'm not saying that that's related, but that's the last decade, basically, of Achilles tears. Most of them have either had soft minutes on back-to-backs or very much more recently haven't played back-to-backs at all. So my guess would be Wiseman is not going to play back-to-backs. But that also means Isaiah Jackson is not going to play back-to-backs. Look at that. There's 2 of them. You can stagger them. So there's going to be games where James Wiseman is just straight up in the rotation, not because someone's hurt, but just because of the schedule. They have a back-to-back for their second and third game of the year, right? I'd imagine Jackson plays one, Wiseman plays the other, Huff plays both. So Wiseman's going to play, and center's the most injured position, right? Jackson or Huff might get hurt. He's going to get chances this year, similar to the discussion last year, even if he's the third guy. So what's that going to look like, right? What can he be? Because the biggest Wiseman fanatics always point to preseason last year. And preseason's a small sample, but he played well in that small sample of time. 8.5 points and 5.8 rebounds per game, shot over 70%. And that's in like 13 minutes a game. Big statistical production. Now, everybody will talk about his defense. His defense needs work, certainly. Some nice numbers, some on-offs are very unkind to him, right? He's going to have to get better on that end of the field, the floor, excuse me. But my pitch last year is similar to my pitch this year, but for a different time in Wiseman and the Pacers' careers, which is why this is different. He's huge. Like I said this last summer, but I have some new listeners, and I need to repeat it for a lot of you. I've been around hundreds of NBA players, and very rarely do I look at a large person now and go, whoa, they're huge. Like I've been around 7-footers all the time, right? Jalen Duren got me. Boban got me. Obviously, Wemby. James Wiseman was a whoa. Like, he's huge and he's jacked, right? So that, of course, is the thing that made me at least like, oh, what's this going to be? He had 7 total possessions of regular season play on the offensive end. I have nothing to say about that. That's such a small sample that it's impossible to take anything from. He did score 6 points. The Pacers won that game by 6. That was great. In preseason, he did well in transition. That's generally good for the way the Pacers played last year. He was a beast on his cutting, like from the opposite side of somebody in the post or from elbows or whatever, and his putbacks. And that's where I think for a Pacers team that struggled with rebounding, he might stand out the most. He was awesome in those ways. That's typically what he's been good at before, but that's really what he shined within a still small but larger than his regular season sample of preseason games. And so those got me thinking. Transition's one thing, but a lot of those plays might work better or at least have more like noticeable effect on a team with a slower style. Now, it's unclear if the Pacers are going to play slower. Kyle and I talked about that last month about should the Pacers tweak their play style? What should this look like? How could this go without Haliburton this season? And we both kind of were like, well, experimenting, he called it the czar of the zany get weird. That doesn't mean slower, but it wouldn't shock me if their best way to win without Haliburton was a little slower than their natural pace last year. That could help Wiseman, right? That could be a way that he is just used in a way that helps. He's decent as a role man, but the phrase that I got to after going back into Synergy, watching a lot of his play types and stuff last year is he's kind of, and this is a compliment, even though this word is typically used in a negative way in the NBA, he's a garbage man. Trash plays, he cleans them up. He comes in with a rebound. He comes in from the side. He uses his size to make a trash play a good play. That's a good thing, right? And so that's what his season has to be about. Be himself, find his niche, make the plays that are there, and try to blend that into the Pacers style, because the theory of him fits in better with not quite the Pacers style, and maybe it would have fit. We'll never know because he only played one game last year. But if he tries to add skills and get healthy and learn a new style, like that's a lot to soak in. Maybe he can do it. He soaked in some of that last year, but he only played one game, right? Who knows how comfortable it is. And so to me, this is the kind of year, and this is what I said when they signed him. This year makes more sense to have James Wiseman than last year for the Pacers to me. Last year, of course, they were young and trying to win, but I think the emphasis was more on winning, and they won 50 games. And had they played like they did from December onward, they would have won like high 50s in games, right? They were clearly trying to win. This year, of course, they're going to try to win with what they have, but people are calling it gap year, leap year, experiment year, whatever. And that is a year where development is more on the brain, where your ceiling is naturally lower. That's a better year to take a flyer on a Wiseman type. So I think this year for him is going to be figuring out the right combo of those three things: adding skill, getting healthy, blending into whatever style they play. But this is a better year to have Wiseman. That's why I think him getting minutes for sure, him having that positive in a good way garbage man type of play, him potentially fitting in better the way they'll play this year, it's just all going to potentially filter into a better year for him as the third center. And of course, staying healthy is huge for him, because I can't say these on separate paths. I can't say, well, Wiseman isn't a player that I would have thought would be particularly good in the past, and Rick Carlisle's been a good development guy. I can't say those things talking about both sides of my mouth. It's totally possible that Carlisle develops Wiseman the same way he did with a bunch of other guys who came from other places and didn't look as good, and then were good with the Pacers. And so it's going to be fascinating to see what he is this year. It's going to be fascinating to see how much he plays, what role he's in, how it all looks. But they clearly value him, not only because they've seen his rehab, but because they've signed him 2 years in a row. Last year when I didn't think it made as much sense, and this year when it makes more sense, but he's coming off an Achilles tear. Both times they've wanted him back. They clearly think they can get something out of him, and we'll have to see what that is. But I think after diving back into what we saw in very limited times last year, there are ways that it could work, and the Pacers development staff deserves a chance with a player like that. But again, 2 major injuries in his career just makes it impossible to predict what this is actually going to look like.